And we will try to screw it up less next time, although we can't possibly screw it up as badly as the city is screwing this up. And no support today. That's good. Good start.
Welcome. Sorry, I was doing a dance.
Welcome to the This Week at Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino. I'm the editor of This Week at Worcester. This is Mr. John Edward Keogh. He is a valued contributor to This Week in Worcester, as well as the president of Hollywood Film Group and the executive producer of Manny J Media and 5,000 other titles. I choose those three. Hi, John.
Hi. How you doing?
Well, they're coming back.
Yeah, city council. We'll
talk about that a little bit. Yeah. So city council is back on Tuesday, so we'll talk about what's on the agenda a little bit. But first, now, Tim Murray wrote an op-ed in the Telegram.
We're starting with that one. Yay!
Yes, sir.
Oh man, I'm washed out today, huh? Look at this. Got to turn this light down a bit. Maybe that'll help.
I don't like go looking for stuff with him, you know?
Yeah.
Look, one-on-one, he's a fine guy. He's a nice guy. Have vast disagreements with him on policy, but I mean, as a human being, he's fine. If you have to deal with him, he's fine. He's a good guy. I don't necessarily go looking to pick fights with him, you know? But boy, is this thing tone deaf that he wrote. My God. He starts it off with the headline is "State government belongs in office, not in spare room." So I thought, huh? Granted, the TNG probably wrote that. People usually don't write the headlines. And he starts off with this ominous economic warning signs and loss of revenue shortfalls. Kind of hinting. I don't think he says specifically potential federal cuts, but he basically is dancing around that. And it said, like, unlike 2008, we can see this coming. We know it's coming. And then, so how do we allay this? It's not additional revenue. It's not cuts. It's not something. It's one of the most immediate and necessary steps we can take to strengthen the efficiency and responsiveness of state government and its ability to respond to the coming crisis is to bring state employees back to the office immediately. What? Like what?
Gotta get them back, man. You can't be doing that remote work no more, Tom. We're gonna have to bring
here's how remote work should be decided. If you need to be there, be there. And if you don't. And he talks later on about, collaboration and are there benefits to having everybody in-house? Sure. There's also telephones. There's also this web meeting thing that's, fairly new, I guess, that nobody knows about. And I mean, you're just like, why do you want people to get in their car for, between, I don't know, 20 minutes, whatever a shorter commute is, and, an hour, which can turn into 2 in rush hour traffic, right? I used to do Worcester to Billerica, and it was an hour, unless it wasn't. One day it was almost 3. Because of accidents, obviously. But so like, why do we want to put more people on the roads, creating more congestion in peak traffic hours? And by the way, understand what a commute is. A commute is you spending your time for no money to get to a place to make somebody else money. That's what a commute is. it is you giving your time away because you have to go get your money. And why do we, I mean, obviously, if you, I mean, again, and that's a broad categorization, but if you need to be there, you should be there. And if you don't, leave people alone and do their work. Why, I don't understand why we'd want more people on the road and more congestion and more, when people are often, I mean, yeah, this depends on a lot of things, personality, maybe, age or level of skill, right? Or level of experience. I'm sure there's, a million factors that go into it. But in the end, if somebody is effective working from home, leave them alone.
Well, so I mean,
people are miserable. I don't understand it.
So I mean, so there's two parts to this, right? There's two things that are going on, right? In the middle of this like call for the return to work, we have a society that's moving more to automated things, right? AI and all these other kind of services. And so you would think if there's a way to reduce, wear and tear, I guess, on people, that would be the thing that they kind of lean into. But that's not what they're doing in this case. The other thing that's parallel to this, Tom, is that they're refusing to do the audit that was voted on by everybody. And I get it. I get all the constitutional stuff with that. But it's hard to listen to him when we don't actually know because there really is no audit.
Right.
Right. We really don't we really don't know what people do and what goes on, right? We have a ton of stuff like that in the city government. We don't necessarily know what everybody does. We just have a person who reports back to us on what they do, and so it's really hard to understand, like what people, what people are, what people are doing that he might be targeting. But the other thing about it is, and that like really strikes me is that a bunch of the deals that he's made have been done in a closet. And so it's really hard to hear him talking about people need to come, out of the broom closet when that's where he signed. That's where him and Larry Lucchino met to get the ballpark done. And so, like those kind of like, kind of off the beaten path. And he talks about that all the time. About he's a member of the EDCC there, right? The Economic Development Committee thing, and he's part of the Worcester Business Development Corporation. There's like a lot of stuff where this kind of thing is done off-site, not during work hours. And so, is he saying that work's ineffective? Should we be asking for more oversight over that thing? That's kind of how I view it, right? It's like, how do you have this thing on one hand where you want to really look at the kind of low level workers, and and I don't mean anything bad against these state employees, but they're generally he's not talking about the executives, right? He's talking about people that are making like kind of the lower end salary that they need to like trap efficiency. I just don't see how, if someone's a state employee in like Berkshire County, that they need to drive to Boston every day to go to work at the state house, that makes them more efficient. I don't believe him.
Well, I mean, even so, I mean, that probably wouldn't happen, right? That's a huge drive. But what if the best person you can find is in Berkshire County and they have a house there and they're not going to move? Don't you want the best person you can get?
That's the issue. It's just really striking. The thing is I'm kind of suspicious now at this point, and I know people are saying these things to me all the time, but it's really kind of suspicious, Tom, that he's doing this, and the Telegram and Gazette is featuring him right now, very prominent. Article.
Let's not go down that conspiracy theory road.
I'm gonna go down that road. I have to go down that road. I just find it interesting that there's credibility lent to this person, who then lends his endorsement to candidates right before an election. That I look at that and I say, why is this article like
that's a different
timing
point.
of this article about? Why is it all of a sudden Tim Murray? Why couldn't this have been done in November? Why couldn't this have been done earlier in the summer? Why is it so close to the municipal elections in the city that he really is kind of associated with? It's really kind of a difficult thing for me to understand.
And so it's not like those arguments, especially about collaboration and teamwork and blah blah blah, right? And not blah blah. They're important factors in a workplace, but it's not like they have no credibility. Those arguments, right? There's an argument to make there. I think he's overstating it, but okay. But then we get to this part. In-person work also helps sustain downtown and commercial corridors in municipalities throughout the state. State leased offices and their employees support local restaurants, retailers, and transit systems in both Boston and gateway cities. This is extremely critical to municipal tax bases. So this is neoliberal brain rot at its finest. That it is not businesses that should adjust to the behavior of consumers, but it is consumers who should be forced to change their behavior to benefit businesses. Neolib brain rot. Now businesses don't even need to understand their customers because we'll just force them to, customers wherever state employees are, to businesses wherever state employees. It makes me so mad. What's he talking about? Is there a point there? Sure. What about the places where these people live? And you're now taking those people away from those places for, 8 to 10, 11 hours a day.
Okay, so let's talk about this. I mean, we're all from Worcester, right? And so, one of the great examples of this was the old courthouse to the new courthouse in downtown Worcester. And if you remember, part of the selling point of the new courthouse was that all the lawyers were going to spend all of their money downtown, right? Because they weren't going to shift it out of Worcester. It wasn't going to be a more county, courthouse. Remember, because there was originally a proposal for it to move out of the city entirely, and then they ended up saying, no, we need to keep it on Main Street because those lawyers are essential to those Main Street businesses. Right? That was part of the reason that we built this brand new courthouse, and it was part of the reason that the old courthouse, was converted into these apartments because all those people that lived in those apartments, they were going to walk down Main Street and they were going to go to all those businesses. But it turns out that that's not the case, right? Because what attracts people isn't location necessarily, right? Park Avenue is maybe the greatest example we've ever had. Park Avenue is one of the busiest corridors in the state. One of the busiest corridors in the state. And it has a history of failing businesses because when people are driving home from work, they don't stop. They just don't stop, except for fast food. Fast food has succeeded on that street for a long, long time. But other than that, other than a drive-through kind of service, we've seen the constant overturn of businesses in those areas. And so his argument is based on this idea that people who work for the state are gonna leave the building and go to the restaurant nearby. But we found, especially with commuters, commuter behavior just doesn't match that, the history of it, the science behind it. So it's a policy that he's pushing that's based on an opinion that there's no facts to back up. And yet, like you said, it's kind of this neoliberal thing. There's always the same policy because we know this works, even though we don't know that it works because it's consistently not worked. So, how do you get them to think differently? I mean, even if you told him this in person, I think he would probably say, no, 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 no. The state workers are going to start, spending their money. Tell that to the town of Walpole with their state facility that they had for a long, long, long time there, those corrections officers, and whether or not the corrections officers spent all their money in the city of Walpole, or Concord with the 75-year fight with the Department of Corrections. I mean, we have examples where state facilities just don't produce economic output in the towns that they're located in. It just doesn't.
And then of course you gotta hit all the trendy occupations to say, right? So There's a basic fairness issue here, he says. Everyday construction and utility workers grab their tool belts and go to work. There's one, because we got the construction workers. Grocery and retail workers, along with police, fire, nurse, and healthcare workers, put on their uniforms and go to work to staff their shifts in person. Truck drivers and logistic transportation workers likewise get up and go to work each day to keep our economy moving. So that means somebody that, like, for example, answers, does customer service, inbound customer service, or is, computer programming, or something that, something else that doesn't require them to be physically present, right? Because they're producing a work product. Right. They just, you gotta drive to work.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really this is this concept, like, you need to be seen. Now, listen, maybe there are some jobs where, obviously, I mean, the truck driver thing makes some sense, right? So obviously the truck driver needs to be in the truck for the truck to drive. I get that, but this argument that it's that it's all based on, I'm sorry, people that, like, with we got all kinds of messages coming in from all kinds of people all over the place. The argument that that's the only way, you know what I mean, for it to be done, doesn't seem to make sense in an economy where we're saying we have to evolve and we have to change for all this technology. So maybe one of the evolvements, or the evolutions of the people, need to be that they do less work inside buildings, right? So maybe they stay home more. I mean, maybe that's one of the evolutions, and it's a natural consequence of the decisions that they made, including Mr. Murray, for the lockdowns related to COVID. So, I mean, people got used to that for a long time. Now, I don't know that it's time to, like, renegotiate or re-argue the decisions that were made related to the lockdowns. But here in Massachusetts, they were more severe than they were in other parts of the country. And so there are some legacy things to deal with. And it's really not that far. It's really not that long ago that we were all, like, living inside. And so there needs to be some kind of thought process that isn't just like, well, we've given you long enough kind of deal. Maybe there needs to be a more targeted approach. But again, it's really, but what boggles my mind is, why now, Tom? What is the point of him having this article in the TNG right now? Why did the TNG print it? What do they need? What do they need that for? Like, what exactly does the TNG need to have that go on?
And I just want to read one other thing he says. He says, from my experience leading a large organization through the pandemic, I know that remote work can dilute accountability, weaken collaboration, and slow down decision making. Well, I mean, then maybe you should make those people come to work. But people that, do good work, leave them alone. Because we don't need more people driving to work. Like, why would we want to pump more exhaust into the atmosphere? It's stupid. Never mind the time that people have to spend getting to work, etc. If you have remote employees that aren't performing, well, then you should do something about that. But this is the kicker. From my time as mayor of Worcester and lieutenant governor, I firmly believe that public services must be designed first and foremost for the benefit of the people, not the convenience of providers. No, you think that policy should be designed to basically force or encourage people to take behavior that's to the benefit of the businesses that you want it to benefit, because that's what you said. So you're not for those services. You're not designing services for the people. If you have an employee that can't work at home because I mean, this happens, right? Like, they don't have the discipline, and that type of discipline, at least, to to stay focused, then make them come to work. But
or maybe that person, if they can't stay focused in remote work, maybe they shouldn't work for the state anyways. If the only way that you have a state employee that is going to do their job is that you have to physically watch them all the time, if that's the way it is, then now I have to pay a supervisor too. And we know what supervisor salaries look like in the state, at exorbitant amounts of tax dollars. So, I mean, this is related to kind of the work culture just in general here in the United States. This kind of concept of this middle management executive system that, like, creates this busy work for those people, paperwork of paperwork of paperwork, and there's really just like a small group of people doing actual work at the bottom. I mean, use customer service as the example. Most of the time, customer service people who answer the phones, which by the way, almost always now is after 45 minutes of fighting with an AI bot, right? When you do get to that person, they are slammed. That person is dealing with like every angry human that they've ever that you've ever could, man. Right? I know this because I had to what happened? I had to talk to the Department of Revenue last week, and it took me 40 minutes to get through. When I finally got through, I was impatient and not happy. And that person was dealing with the 58th version of me that morning, right? And I get it. I completely understand it. But so then when they couldn't resolve the question and I asked for a supervisor, it took another half an hour to get to the supervisor. And then the supervisor was super rude, right? So then it's like, okay, now it's what it is. So then I had to eventually go down to the office and deal with the supervisor's supervisor, right? Right. So it's like, and none of them can make a decision. None of them can make a decision. And in the end, it turns out that I have to go to, like a assistant director of whatever that's appointed by the governor. That's the only person who could fix this specific thing that I'm trying to deal with. And so they don't even empower the people that they want to come back to work. Right. So all three of those people, or the two bottom ones, were not in person. The third person was in person, but they're the people that were dealing with me are at home talking to me. So it's like what are you talking about, Tim? Which ones of the three people that couldn't make a decision are the ones that are needed to be in the office? Because even if they were empowered to make decisions, they could have done that at home because it's just a click in the computer, right? And so that's the issue is which work can be supervised and which work doesn't need to be supervised. Obviously, a police officer needs to be on in person, right? And I'm sure there's other things that are close to that. But how do you figure those things out? How do you balance that? I don't think it's with a unilateral approach like Tim proposed in the newspaper.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, look, there's companies far and wide that are building tech products, software products, that they'll hire anybody on earth if they have the right skills, because and they're quite successful doing that because they use agile project management with the Scrum framework, which is a system for managing projects and assigning work process. And it's only like 40 years old or something. I mean, they couldn't figure out in 40 years. I don't know what to tell you. So, this should be decided on obviously the nature of the position the person is in, but on their effectiveness. And some unilateral policy to just make everybody, give their time away to go into an office is, if not necessary, is stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah. Also, I think
highly anti-worker.
Not only that, I will say this, right? When we look at government, right? When you think about for example, let's just use let's use a semi-state agency in the WRTA, right? So the bus lines, right? At the time, right, in the middle of COVID, we realized that there was probably no way that we could ask people to pay for fares at that time. And fare free was already something that was being talked about all over the country because public transportation systems seem to work better and create more economic value when they're free. That's what we've seen all over that's just not in America, that's in the world. The science is clear. There's like 50 years of data now that when you have free buses, free cabs, free trolleys, whatever, it leads to more economic activity because people feel like they can go and access. There's no barrier to entry for those, especially for those kind of lower level workers, right? And so if you remember, it was like 7 meetings for them to make the decision that was clearly obvious. It was clearly obvious. And listen, I give credit to Gary Rosen, who was one of the people who pushed it at the time, right? He's running for at-large counselor again this year. And good for him, but he had to fight tooth and nail with the board. And if you remember, if you remember, everything was on Zoom, but there was like a crazy amount of people just calling in like no free buses, and they were just anti this now. And now our system is one of the more successful systems in the country, right? Even and you can hear the creeping kind of neoliberal conservative grouping, super people that want to take it back, even though it's working, right? They do. You can hear
even
this.
though even though it turns out it cost them more money to collect the money,
It did.
then
Then
they were
they were
losing more money by charging.
they were losing money on the passes. And so it's like, why charge if you're losing money? Why are we paying a finance company money to collect money for the passes? It just didn't make any sense, right? And so, just like if you look at the budget this year, they lost money on parking. So, like on the actual where you put the card into the reader, they lost money on that thing. They lost money on it. So every time you put your card in for the three, and not on the minimum, on the maximum amount, which I think is $3. So the $3 transaction, the city actually paid out. I think it was an average like 307. Tim McGurty explained it during the budget hearings. But if you look at the full breadth of it, they lost money on those transactions. So that's a losing transaction. We're not making any money on that. That's really not, like, makes no sense. So how many employees are related to that job or another job? And there's a ton of things like this that maybe one of the things we really need to talk about, and this is Tim Murray isn't gonna want to hear this, right? Is that we need to reduce the size of state government. Maybe we have too many people working for the state, and the people that we need to get rid of maybe are kind of up the chain with a little bit more, making a little bit more dough.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
I don't know.
Nobody wants to talk about that.
That should be determined on the productivity you need to achieve and all of
Right.
that, right?
Well, that's my point. What is the productivity? Like, where are there actual discernible goals to determine whether something is done or not? Right. So, like, for example, Department of Public Works, they get a lot of strife. How do you measure their job? Because there's always going to be potholes, right? It's the nature of putting cement the concrete over dirt. There's going to be potholes. There's going to be sinkholes. There's going to be wear and tear on the roads until we figure out some surface that, like, you put how do you determine whether or not they did it? Is it just based on public opinion? Because I mean, we know what the public opinion on the roads is in Worcester. We know what that is, right? So does that mean everybody should be fired? No, or is it not necessarily something you can determine? How do you determine without actual discernible goals? And the resistance to accountability, at least in our city and then in our county and then the state beyond, is amazing. Because when we want to have accountability, when we want to have an audit, 72% of the voters voted for an audit. We're not getting it. Still not getting it, right? It's mind-boggling to watch it happen. And now, because in my opinion, Tom, like, there should have been some voluntary expression of accountability done by the Congress that maybe it didn't exactly give the auditor the win that she's looking for, but it did give something to the people. Because I'm telling you, man, I think it's very, very clear that you might see a very, very different Beacon Hill next year at the governor's office because of that one issue. that one thing, you might have a big change at the top.
I can't imagine that to be true, but I hope you're right.
Well, I know someone is raising a lot of money that's directly associated with that issue, and that is Diana DeGoslio herself, who has proven to be a significant statewide vote getter at the auditor's office. The amount of votes that she got for auditor is amazing. And so if that's the case, if she goes to be governor, believe me, the legislative branch is going to have some trouble then. It's going to be crazy.
So yeah, I in summary, unsurprisingly, disagree vehemently with this op-ed and think it's kind of silly. Like, I just don't.
Again, I just question the timing of the article. Just very strange, very particularly placed out of nowhere. And because we didn't even talk about this in the pre-show notes, but the Chip Norton story came out this week too, and so it often I can't help but be suspicious. I can't help but be suspicious, man. The Chip Norton story came out. We didn't even talk about this, but Chip Norton, big time developer, Mercantile Center, ton of money, the biggest landowner and building owner in Worcester County. By far, not even close. Um, Other than the Catholic Church and McDonald's, right? So, but as an individual, he's the biggest guy. And he files for bankruptcy. Apparently, such a bankruptcy that it seems like he's driving for Uber. It's weird how that article by Eric Casey, my rival when it comes to the movie stuff, he thinks I hate him. I don't hate him, but this is a great article by Eric. Let me give credit where credit is due. But Chip Norton was celebrated by Tim Murray. By Tim Murray. The WBDC gave him an award. He's been all over everything. And so now, listen, I'm not casting aspersions at Chip himself, but clearly that business model has some issues with money. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's based on valuations, but I know that he's got a bunch of banks. When banks are suing you, that's not good. There's no point.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, at least in part, some of it was that he he took some loans or used cash advance systems or whatever it was, which required his personal liability, and
Right.
now he's not able to. So,
I also
it's not good.
It's not good. Now the buildings are worth a lot of money, at least they are valuation wise. So when this kind of thing happens, it's usually because of personal things between like who's negotiating. So I don't know if Chip is personally negotiating loans or refinancing or whatever, but normally they don't like for people like this to go out of business. And so there's something that we don't know. And I mean, Eric did a great job in his reporting and he got some really significant details, but there's probably some other things behind there that we just don't know about. But I'll tell you what, the Chip Norton fan club did not come out to support him this week all over Worcester social media. It is a bloodbath for him everywhere. Everybody who ever that he turned his nose at in his history is coming out of the woodwork with all kinds of stuff, which by the way, downfall brings many flies. I know Mayor Petty loves to say you attract more flies with honey, but he's completely scientifically wrong because flies are attracted to poop. And so when poop comes out about you, you will hear all the flies buzzing, buzzing, buzzing. And Chip Norton is definitely going through that this week.
Yeah, for sure. The city manager has, I don't know, relaunched or expanded, or I'm not sure how to phrase it, but is putting at least more of his voice behind the Clean Up Worcester effort. And you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I got some. I mean, so we talked about it a little bit last week, and then there was an article in the Telegram and Gazette, right? A lot of like the primary, that's the flagship paper of City Hall, and they love to put articles in that newspaper that just slop all over the folks down at City Hall. But so, one thing that really struck me is that I see the city social media pages all of a sudden activating with all these things where you see, the DPW. Now, I want to make this clear to our audience. The Department of Public Works employees are doing a good job. Like no one's I'm not casting aspersions on the people that are like mowing the lawn, that are picking up the trash. I told you I've become kind of close and friendly with some of the folks at Elm Park because I see them all the time. And so, I see them picking up the trash. I see them mowing the lawn, and I appreciate the effort that they're making. So, but that's a regular employee. That's not supervisory level. That's not middle management or whatever. That's a different thing. So, those folks are doing a good job. And the city manager made this big media splash that the month of August is going to be all about cleaning up. But I noticed this, and Tom, this is a theme central to Eric Batista's administration, and that is he celebrates his employees, himself, and celebrities, but does not give credit to the regular people that have been doing the work. And so on the day earlier this week, I think it was Wednesday, the city did a series of posts on Facebook and on the Worcester Twitter and all the other stuff, right? Instagram, about the cleanup efforts and took pictures of before and after. It was great. But on that day happened to be a day that Victor Cruz was cleaning up a ton of needles and had been put together a team of people for months. It was a scheduled thing. And the city manager wasn't there for that, and he wasn't taking pictures of those people. And so I'm sorry, but I have to say it out loud. Again, this city administration has been consistent in celebrating itself, but it does not celebrate the people of Worcester. And that's a really, really big deal to me, because there are people who are doing every single day. Every single day, there are people working really, really hard to clean up the streets of Worcester. Again, there's a small group of mothers who meet, and I'm not going to say their names because there's people in our chat that'll go hog wild. But there's a group of moms who come down to Elm Park. They pick up trash. They walk up to Newton Hill. They pick up trash, and they from our douche joggers that love to throw trash around, and they pick stuff up all the time. They give water out to the folks that are unhoused. They believe me, I've been. I mean, I look. That's people like kind of take me for that sometimes. But they've offered me water a couple times when I'm walking around the park, and I notice those things. Those are regular people, and the city doesn't celebrate them. The city just celebrates the administration of the city, and that's really a connected problem to a bigger thing, and that is that the city is about itself. But the city of Worcester is more than just the administration of Eric Batista. It's more than just that group of people that are all making $200,000 a year. It's also about the regular folks that make up the kind of tapestry of what Worcester really is. And so that's my focus. That's who I care about, and I want to see them celebrated. And the city does a terrible job of doing it. A great example, Tom, if you go back in time to when they announced that the Rockland Trust Plaza was being activated. If you remember, they talked about it. There's a little video. You got him and Tom Matthews in the buzz, and they don't mention the person that did it. They mentioned FamGram, and it's just kind of like off to the side. It was activated by FamJam. But there's a story behind FamJam, a multiple year story of a man. His name's Jeff Killebrew, and a team of people, right, that worked with him to get that into position. Victor Cruz is another great example. There's years of this work that this person's being doing. If you go look at the Summer Jam Classic, I love the post that said, "We left it cleaner than it was before we got here." Because that's people doing that. That's not the city doing that. And so now all of a sudden there's a portal where you can apply for funds. And now all of a sudden there's a portal where you get free bags. And now all of a sudden there's lots of posts from the city about the city. But what I'm saying is celebrate the people that have been doing it all along. And don't make them go through the process, the begging process of having to do things. Another great example, I'm sorry, listen, good for Joyner Lucas. He is a son of Worcester. I'm happy that today he got a part of Chandler Street or Dewey Street named after him. Good for Chandler, good for him. Good for him. But I can't help, Tom, but remember the absolute fight that Dan Gaskin's street naming took, and how much the city did not support it. Today, they pulled out all the stops. They shut down the street for blocks. Every single city official was there. They were high-fiving and shouting his name from the rooftops. But I watched what Jen had to go through to get Dan's name on there. Why was it so easy for Joyner? And it's great because he's alive. It's awesome that that's true. That's great for our city. He's from here. He should be celebrated. But why is it that a celebrity gets the red carpet treatment, and we have other regular people have to fight tooth and nail, right? It's just amazing. It's just amazing to me, and they don't get it, Tom. They don't get it.
Conditioning. It's always been like this. So yeah, I mean, cleaning up in the end, cleaning up the city is good. But I agree. There's people that are doing it on their own accord, not because they're getting paid or not because they have something to gain. I mean, maybe they're promoting themselves by doing it, but I mean, fine, that's fine, good. And yeah, I mean, I kind of write off the celebrating themselves, as you put it, That's just promotion, right? They're just trying to promote. Hey, we're actually doing something. Here's something you won't want to yell at us for that we're doing. That's fine. But I do agree. People like Victor Cruz, could at least in the mix of all this get mentioned as
let him get a key
contributing to the.
Give Victor a key.
Just acknowledging that he's doing this, and
Yeah, and not just him too. By the way, I don't want to. I mean, when we put out the post, there's a bunch of people that have been doing stuff. Like, the Beaver Brook group. There's a whole group there, Tom, that goes down to Beaver Brook every week, and they're walking up and down that bridge and they're picking stuff up. And these are like retired folks, women and kids that are doing this. We talked about Maria Montano before. For years, the roads around Cambridge Street, and by the way, they still never fixed that footbridge. It's still that way. It's still in the same exact condition as when she was posting those posts. And so we have people that should be celebrated and talked about, and they deserve it. And by the way, we just covered a very wide spectrum of political thought, right? So it's not like we're looking for one group. You got everybody from like the kind of like maybe really liberal all the way to super conservative in that group of people. And so we're trying to celebrate the people versus celebrate the kind of successes of a specific group, kind of the same old, the Mike O'Brien, Ed Augustus, Eric Batista 25-year long rule of the city of Worcester.
And as we said earlier, coming up on Tuesday, they're back.
They are. City Council is back, and it is an interesting agenda, to say the least. I wrote a little preview.
I mean, nothing that like leaps out at you as, oh wow, like, oh, that'll be interesting, or anything like that. But I mean, it's long, but a lot of it is, I mean, they haven't met in 5 weeks, so you got a bunch of traffic and parking stuff that is backed up, and that'll all kind of be done in one swoop and sent to committee. So I don't think it'll be into the twilight of the night type of meeting, because I mean, a lot of it is going to move pretty quickly.
I just dropped the link in the chat for the article that Tom and I put out today about the stuff that's coming up. Freddie Nathan, you will be police chief. Tom, you will be head chef.
I can't yell at it. I can't yell at enough people in that position. I need a really very yelly position.
Oops, sorry. Throwing it in the YouTube chat too. I've learned how to do this. I'm doing multiple platforms at the same time. Tom, how do you like that?
You should send it out to all of them, I think, if you send something.
No. When you do it to Facebook, it only goes to Facebook. Unless you do it, I think you can do it. I'm not the.
Oh, I see. No, there's a little tab next to it. You can send it where you want to send it. Next to the right where you type into the bottom of the chat. We'll get it later. One thing I did, and we're not going to go on this whole tangent again, but I did mention, when the whole conversation about the grocery stores happened, and oh my God, we can't do this, even though we already have, the city already owns other businesses that it operates. I did forget because it's on and I thought of it because it's on the agenda for some maintenance stuff. But Green Hill Golf Course, another. I must demand that the city manager be required to wear his caddy uniform to a city council meeting. I demand it.
Wait, because for those of you who don't know Worcester, right? For those of you, because I know we're getting a lot more people who've been checking in from some of the other worlds that Tom and I are a part of, right? Please explain to them, Tom, the Green Hill Golf Course thing, because they don't know. They don't know.
The city owns a golf course.
But what about the golf course? What happens when you do things there? When you do things at the golf course, caddy uniforms, when you do all that kind of stuff? Oh,
well, yeah. I mean, it was said a couple times. It was said by I forget who said it. Maybe I think it was Council Russell who said it, and
Yeah,
then repeated basically the same line repeated by Ray Mariano in the Telegram. We don't need the city manager putting on his butcher's uniform. Well, I want to see him in his ticket taker uniform for DCU. Maybe we'll make him Bat Boy for a day, and he can wear that uniform from the other corporate giveaway, Polo Park. And I definitely want to see him in his caddy uniform.
That's right. So the city does own those things, contrary to popular belief. They also own the telephone poles that all the cable lines are on. For those of you who continue to be confused about the Charter Spectrum debate, they own them with National Grid and Verizon, but the actual ground that the telephone poles are in are owned 100% and wholly by the city of Worcester.
There's also a report on police body cameras that basically just says we've collected this many pieces of evidence with it. I mean, I don't know what else it's supposed to include. I'm not necessarily criticizing it. I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I do want to mention. There's a bunch of items, so it's hard for me in the 2 minutes.
Well, hold on, time out. The future mayor of Worcester has left the building. I just want to.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, the chat is probably missing him greatly. I think I was getting hammered again by Henry. I'm sure Henry's was whenever I see Henry, it's some criticism of John. Henry and Marcy Provin, those are the two that just go at me no matter where I am. Doesn't matter. Oh man, my brain just turned off. What was I gonna say? Oh, so yeah, and I wanted to talk about the body camera things in my public speaking on Tuesday at the thing, so in the public time. And what I want to ask is this question. It's twofold. So the first part is for the city of Worcester is, why aren't the body cameras just always on? I don't understand why they're not just always on. Well, when they put on the uniform and they go for duty, click, go forward. Why are they not always on? I don't understand.
You want to see officers junk when they pee?
Well, why would they turn their body? They're positioned here, so that would be a really strange thing to do. They'd have to turn themselves down to show themselves peeing. So, but
I mean, I don't think that's necessary. But when they're engaging in any call or any interaction,
well, I kind of want to know what they're doing in the car.
I mean,
because I have to tell you, Tom, I see a lot of officers riding along in the car on their computers. I see a ton of officers not signaling to make turns at every single intersection and a thing everywhere. I see that constantly. Now that's a plague that plagues our whole society. So it's not just officers that are doing that. But I kind of want to know what's going on. I also want to know what's going on in that building. I don't believe that they have a reason for that building to be private. I think that's a public building. And so I think that, and I get it, when someone's like, in an interview, I guess, with the law, blah, blah, I don't know. I guess there's some reaction, but I really want to know why those cameras aren't all of the time. And there's a second point I have that's related to this. But why aren't those cameras on all the time? Why are they only on some of the time? Yeah, and then because the thing is, one of the massive reforms that both the Department of Justice and the chief talked about is that there are now 60 videos reviewed by the supervisors every month instead of 40 videos. So they added 20 videos. If you remember, that was like a big thing. Woohoo! 60 new videos are being reviewed by each of the people who review videos, right? Yep. Why isn't every video reviewed? Why is it
impossible?
So then it's really impossible to know what's happened. What's true, what's not true. It's really difficult, right? So it calls for those videos and that kind of material to be reviewed by somebody else, which would be.
So I believe the policy is any use of force is reviewed. There's the 60 per supervisor, 60. They're basically auditing, right? So they're just doing random polls.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's good stuff. I mean, it is a piece of the pie. Yeah, they should be doing that stuff. Absolutely. Good and it's good that they are. Great. I don't think it's the end all be all of anything, but
no, I'm just saying, what would we find culture-wise if everything was recorded?
Yeah, that's way overboard. That's active monitoring of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is active monitoring.
Yeah, that might not even be legal.
Huh?
That might not even be legal. So
why is it legal for them to do it to us?
They can't put it in your house.
No, but they have access to any security camera that is public facing. They have access to Ring cameras. They have incidental access to phone calls that are made to public institutions. They have incidental access to documentation that you may have mailed to a public institution, email correspondence. They can review social media without a warrant, things like that. There's a lot of
Social media
public
is
monitoring,
public.
huh?
Say something in public on social media. That's in public.
Well, the police, every action they do is in public because they work for the public.
Yeah, peeing is not in public. That's draconian stuff. That's draconian.
It's an extreme argument. The idea that they would have it on when they went into the bathroom doesn't make any sense. But so there's a button, there's a bathroom button, like, oh, I'm taking a bathroom break, I'm going to the bathroom. But when they're in the car, why couldn't it be on? Is their junk out when they're in the car? Because if it is, I want to know that. If it is, why? What are they looking at on the computer, Tom? Because I do know of an incident, at least one incident, where an officer was looking at something on a computer that he shouldn't have
been. That could be.
Does that make sense to you? So I want to know. I want to know everything there. So if I was in charge, no, I'm not in charge. I'm just a person in the media. But I do know that a lot of city councilors and a lot of officers watch our show because they love to talk smack about it afterwards. So, man, maybe accountability could happen if just the stuff that we're supposed to get is given. But man, if there's like a change in authority structure someday, maybe there will be someone who comes in charge that would then review every single thing that you're doing.
It would be impossible.
I don't think it would be. I don't think anything's impossible. We got AI for that, Tom. Just throw an AI bot on it.
All right. Anyway. It's just a ridiculous argument.
No, but here's why. Significant national issue. Have you noticed something about the ICE raids, Tom?
A lot of things, but what are you talking about?
None of them are wearing body cameras.
Oh no, the feds don't. I don't know if the feds even have a policy on body cameras. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
That's an interesting thing. Most of the information that we've been able to collect about the bad actions of the ICE have come from either police body cameras or people with cell phones. Mm-hmm. And if there wasn't those things, this stuff would be just happening willy-nilly. Great example was, Charlie Kirk, who's an absolute jerk, maybe one of the worst humans on the face of the planet. He loves to go on TV, and he's all over Fox News now. But he went on, he loves to argue with college students, and the college students brought up that several American citizens have been deported. And his way of doing this is that he'll start to argue at the person and demand more information. So he's like, well, what's the name of the person? What's the name of the person? And they weren't able to come up with the name. And he's like, yeah, that's because that's a lie. But we know it's not. Because Marco Rubio admitted at least 7 infants have been shipped to other countries that are all, infants to 2 years old have been shipped out of our country to other countries that are American citizens.
How did we get here from body cameras?
Well, wouldn't we have had more information if we were able to track the movements of these people and see what they're actually doing? Or how about the Eureka Street incident? A perfect example here, Tom, is that if somebody in the room somewhere had had a conversation, they would have known that the woman that was subject to the arrest had court on Tuesday, the Tuesday following the Thursday of the incident. There was a court appearance that they had coming up. So the arrest could have been affected with much less resources if there was somebody monitoring those kind of things. And that kind of monitoring, apparently in today's modern age, only happens if there's video. So we can only get people to be accountable if there's video. That's the big argument against us. The big thing against us is that they keep saying to us about all these things in the DOJ report and the accountability situations that we've talked about is that there's no video. If there was video, then they would admit it. That's the only thing that ever seems to lead to any accountability is video. So in my opinion, I want more. I want it everywhere. I want video cameras everywhere because that's the only way we can track what people are doing, in my opinion.
Okay, so that's crazy. And we can't even get accountability for things that are on video.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I feel like at least there would be a little bit of restraint if there was. In the case of the situation with the young man and the dog, right? At the beer garden case, is they didn't know there was a video.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that, Marisa. But they pushed back on that because there was video. There was video of the officer knowing that it was water. But let me tell you this: Ashley Spring would still be charged with a felony if that video of that officer didn't exist. That's a fact. And that video wasn't a body cam video. That was a cell phone video that then led to the city having to release the body camera video. But that cell phone video we had that day, that Thursday night, there was a video, a clear video of that officer saying that it was water. And my contention is if that video didn't exist, it's very likely that Ashley would still be dealing with a more significant charge.
Yep. Yep.
By the way, is it cool when I go like this? Does this make me look studious?
No.
No. Do you like it?
It makes you.
When I go,
I don't know. Even it's weird. Yeah, I'm glad you did that though, because I was dangerously close to a rant that was unnecessary. So yeah, I mean, as is usual, there's a lot of the kind of procedural, run-of-the-mill stuff on the agenda. There's a few interesting things. A whole bunch of streets and parking. I mean, that's business they have to do. It's just not all that exciting. Not that any of it is all that exciting, but think of it in the proper context.
I really do think that by design, the city council is designed for people not to really pay attention to some of the details. But as I put in the article, there's some interesting things. Like I saw the guy who is the new trust fund guy, right? So there's a bunch of positions that city manager gets to put in without any vote by the city council. Let me just look up my own article because I'm gonna forget the guy's name. But there is a guy, and his name is. Everybody, bear with me. Did you take it out? Oh, no. Shepard Allen. Allen to the Trust Funds Commission. Right. So now I'm not against Mr. Allen. I looked him up. He apparently worked for Bartlett Wealth Management, and he apparently knows what he's doing. He's good at his job. If you go look up his clients and stuff, he's really good. So, that makes sense that you would put somebody on trust funds that knows how to do trust funds, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. I get that. But that's an interesting thing is that kind of is just like a position that just slides under the rug. I have a question, Tom? Did you even know there was a trust funds commission? Because I didn't. It was kind of. I knew there was a housing trust fund, but I didn't know there was a trust funds commission.
I didn't. To be honest, I didn't.
I may have read it before. I'm sure that we've like it's been on a list of something, but I didn't know it wasn't like something that I was aware of or I could pretend that I knew about. And so when I saw that
they meet quarterly, so it's not like
yeah. And I think they deal with stuff like because like I'm assuming they deal with like big giant donations that are made to some of the city-run institutions. There's buildings and there's like organizations that are partially quasi-municipal organizations and also nonprofits. And so I'm sure there's a bunch of that like legal mumbo jumbo. So good for Shepard Allen. I'm pro Shepard Allen. I don't know the guy at all. I'm actually going to reach out to him and see if he'll talk to me and tell me like about that role. Maybe write an article about him for This Week in Worcester, just kind of figure out what that means. But it made me think of all the other ones because there's a ton of appointments that the city manager makes that have no voting. They just acknowledged, right, and then filed. So the city council does not have the ability to stop them unless they talk about the person on the floor and the city manager withdraws them. But there actually is no power for the city council to get involved with this particular guy's appointment. And I just found that to be really interesting and kind of related to that kind of ho-hum, here's an agenda before the preliminary. It just kind of goes through and there's a bunch of stuff on there and none of us know what it means. And so I think that this is where it's our job as the media, as journalists, to review that stuff. Like, what's going on there? Who's this guy? Is he cool? I don't know if he's cool. He seems cool. I looked him up on LinkedIn. I tried to connect with him, and he looked me up back. So far, he seems pretty cool, right? You know what I mean? And so, and that's really my. It's not a nefarious thing because I'm not trying to assume that everything is negative and bad, but I am trying to ask, what is this thing that is going on? What does that guy do? What does the trust fund commission do? What is it? Why does it exist? Why is it part of the city manager's purview? Because if there was a change in government, Tom, right? If the Plan E got overturned somehow, and then we had a new plan, and we had a strong mayor, I assume this would be part of the mayor's portfolio that they would then take over.
So,
or maybe not.
The description, I'm just reading off the website. It's about as much information as I know about it. Manage all trust funds given or bestowed for the benefit of the inhabitants of the city of Worcester. So it's it oversees the whole trust fund system.
Now, so this is cool because you can leave money and land and buildings and property to the government if you choose to, and you can also leave it to the people, right? So, like, you can say this is for the benefit of the people of Worcester. This is directly to the government of Worcester. Like, there's difference in
I'm not sure that's. I think this is trust funds that the city has, like the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Okay, that's
management of that.
So that's what I mean. So I find this really fascinating, right? I'm sure everybody on our channel is like, "What the hell are they talking about?" So my thing is that I want to know what this is. I want to get it. I want to understand it. I want to dig into it. And I'm hopeful that it turns out to be cool. I'm also skeptical at all times that there's something weird about it. I just am. I just naturally am, because I want to know what. So Green Hill Park was left to the city. Oh, cool. See, so Sean coming with the knowledge. It's always good to have Sean. Sean's picture was on the internet this week because I can't tell you all the things, but Sean's a very famous guy. Very, very famous guy. I like that guy.
I will say something about boards and commissions, which I don't know why I just realized it recently, but I did. So there's 3 kinds of boards or commissions, right? They're all classified. Right. So the one that city council must approve the city manager's nominees is an advisory committee, right? And its description is to provide advice and information to the city council, the school committee, and the city manager. Such advice is not binding upon these agencies. Nominees to advisory committees must be confirmed. Okay. Right. So they're providing advice that may be taken, may be left. And council approves those. And then we have executive committees, right? Executive boards or commissions, which establish policy for city departments and supervise departmental operations through an executive officer who is the administrative head of a city agency. Okay, so it's basically the board that manages an agency, right? A city department. And that's fine. And that does not need confirmation. And I actually agree with that, because that's well within the executive branch, right? The executive, the function of city government. And then we have regulatory boards or commissions,
right?
And they have responsibilities relating to the application and enforcement of laws and regulations, and have the power to adjudicate disputes regarding the application of laws and regulations, issue permits or licenses, hear appeals from aggrieved persons complaining about administrative actions.
Aggrieved.
And that does not.
That just says
so these people actually do stuff that's binding.
Right.
And that does not require confirmation. Now, don't you think that advisory boards, we really don't need? Personally, I think the city council should be able to have its own advisory boards.
Yes.
But where the people in city government currently are just steadfastly devoted to this one branch of government thing that just defies all of American history. But I'd be perfectly fine to not have advisory boards have their members confirmed, but the manager, appoint the people that he wants to give him advice, right?
Right.
But when you have real power like a regulatory board, that's what should. And I haven't looked at this in other cities, so maybe this is just the way it's done. I don't know, but it seems stupid to me. It seems like we're doing it backwards.
Yeah, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. I agree with you. I think that those boards that have more power, like the Human Rights Commission, which has like subpoena, was somewhat kind of subpoena power.
Well, it really doesn't, though, because they rewrote when they did the reorg, they rewrote the ordinance that the only way that they can subpoena somebody is by going to the city solicitor. So if the city manager doesn't want that to happen, it just won't happen.
Yeah. So the thing is whether that ordinance would stand constitutional scrutiny is the big question. So originally, before they rewrote it
here's the problem with that, though.
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but here's the problem with that. is guess who? Say if the Human Rights Commission was steamrolled for 2 or 3 years and couldn't get any documents to fulfill its actual obligation under the law in the ordinance.
Right.
They got to go to sue to enforce their rights.
The city solicitor?
Which means it won't happen.
So that's interesting too, because the same thing is happening with the audit, right? So the auditor at the state level wants to sue
right.
the
exactly
state
right.
house, and the attorney general is refusing to represent the auditor. So the auditor is trying to do an end around, which has only happened one time in Massachusetts history, but there is precedent. There's one specific case, and that was the Big Dig, and is specifically what's his name? The guy that got sued that has a big contracting company that gets all the contracts around here. Forget the guy's name. Amaretto? Is it that guy? I forget. But anyways, the guy who was used to be the head of Massport got sued, and the state attorney general at the time refused to do it, and they were able to get outside counsel, and the state Supreme Court said, yes, you can go forward because the attorney general was abdicating their position. In this case, Andrea Cabral is kind of refusing to do it, and it's like dragged her feet for more than a year now. And so we're dealing with the consequences that now we have to pay. By the way, we have to pay for all of this. All of this is taxpayer dollars. Now, in the case of Diana DeGozlio's, she offered to pay from her personal funds, like her personal funds, and then the attorney general went to court to stop that. So there's like all kinds of like machinations going on. So that's crazy. So the Human Rights Commission, if they can't get anything done, the lawyer that has to represent them is the city solicitor, and the city solicitor, of course, will do whatever the city manager tells them to do. And so
they'll be fired.
Or they'll be fired.
Of course, they're going to do what they're told. With their direct supervisor, who they serve at the collision rep. Right.
And technically, they'd be suing themselves, because the person who's not giving the Human Rights Commission the stuff they need is them. So it's like you would need a different.
So
right?
You have a Human Rights Commission,
right?
Who, before they redid the ordinance, had sued the city twice,
right?
And won both times. Because what they were trying to do was very specifically within their mandate in the ordinance law. So now what we have in the city is, and really at the state, I guess it's kind of the same situation at the state level, although that's about the legislature, and so it's a little different there, but
it's a different brand, right?
Yeah. But what we have in Worcester, at least, is we have ordinances that can be violated, and there is absolutely no way to enforce the law.
So then it comes to this thing, which I think a lot of people have been finding out about, this thing that, guys like Tom and I know about because we've done a lot of studying. But there's this quirk kind of in American law, and American law is very much based on British common law, right? So it's very old kind of way of doing things. And one of the weirdest things is this thing called standing. So you need to have standing or the right to sue, right? And so tons of cases are dismissed and stopped and overturned all the time based on this thing called standing.
Well, but it is you have to show that you are actually being damaged or will be damaged. You will actually have some sort of loss, right?
And then there's this thing called there's the thing called I'm going to say this. I'm not going to say the Latin because I'll forget it right, but there's basically called the option to cure. So most of the time, if there is some question of standing versus, whether the harm is going to continue, most initial judges, the person who sees a case at the beginning, they give the person who is being sued a thing called the option to cure. So they get a period of time that they can fix the issue. So, and then most of the time the government does the minimum, whatever the minimum it is that they can do to cure the thing, they do that. Right. So then that's how they kind of solve the issue. So in the case of documents release, a lot of times what the government will do is they'll just release every document, just overwhelm the agency in question, or they'll let the time run out. And then there's this thing called moot, right? And moot just basically means the point doesn't matter anymore because the time ran out or the person that was being affected no longer cares, yada yada yada. That's what happens in this kind of civil governmental law. And so I think that what we're seeing very much from the city manager is a very Trumpian playbook, which is it's called run out the clock.
You know what? I mean, I've been quite critical of the way he treated the last iteration of, because there's been then now new members appointed of the Human Rights Commission, but he's doing it because he can.
Yeah.
And there's two places that you can go to cure that, and that's court, and they've cut that off.
Right.
And it's the city council that is, again, the only entity in city government, as it is kind of how it works in American politics or American government. It creates the laws, but nobody will say anything. But we're back to the preeminent political factor that runs government in Worcester, and that is the cult of silence.
Yeah, so then it just becomes silent. And so, I know I'm by the way, my opinions are not the opinions of This Week in Worcester. They are the opinions of John Edward Keogh. I want to make that entirely clear. Tom is not endorsing everything that I say. I'm just telling you that when I use the term Trumpian, it's just because it's easy, and it's easy to use because it's recent, but it's not a new thing, running out the play clock. So I actually look at the terms of the human rights commissioners that were let go being run out as very much in line with what President Trump did, which is just eventually just get it to the point where those people are gone. And so now that they're not gone, and I know this is going to be hard for Randy Feldman and Guillermo Creamer to deal with, but the fact is that Eric Batista was much more comfortable with Guillermo Creamer and Randy Feldman being the chair and vice chair than he was with Ellen
Shemitz and Elizabeth. I can't.
And Elizabeth McDonough, right? So
Callahan.
Callahan. Sorry, another Irish last name. I should know all these things, right? So, anyways, those two ladies were very, very forceful. And by the way, the news said that all these battles were just over the police. That's not true at all. They were constantly dealing with a lack of feedback. But we go back to the racial equity audit. There was a ton of stuff that this particular group dealt with over the period of the transition into Ed Augustus leaving and interim, and then Eric becoming the city manager. And so it was like a legacy of years going back that commission was constantly dealing with pushback from this city manager. So the legacy this city manager has with the Human Rights Commission so far is, in my opinion, very Trumpian.
I don't know. I suppose how you apply the term. It wasn't good, though.
Eric Trumpista.
And
I'm getting
I mean, again, it's really the only place that any oversight of the police department happens. Certainly doesn't happen in the public safety committee.
It definitely does.
And it's been neutered.
It's good to see the public safety committee chair meeting and making sure that they break bread with the police officers on a regular basis. Though, gotta get those photo ops in.
Yeah, but don't ever ask a tough question though. Whatever you do.
No, never ask a tough question.
And certainly don't ask for any information or pretend to do any oversight. Just pretend. Don't even pretend.
Yeah.
Everything's so perfect over there.
Everything's perfect. Everything's wonderful. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome. Do you not know that? Do you not know that song, Tom?
No. I'm gonna forget his name. Tony Buzza, who was in the '80s was chief of Minneapolis Police Department and wrote a book afterward. And in that book, he said 98% of officers are good, and they're sometimes heroic, and 2% are, and had listed a long list of adjectives that I won't remember all of, but grifters, scumbags, thugs. I don't think he said scumbags, but thugs and grifters was in there. And on and on. And just no. Why would you want to deal with that 2%? That's not politically expedient.
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to deal with that, because you have relatives, and sometimes your relatives aren't the greatest guy. In my family, I'm the black sheep, and there's relatives of mine that do not want to deal with me, and I completely understand because John, as a 20-year-old, was a problem, was a serious problem, and so it is what it is. And so, whoa, I don't know what just happened there, but I had something fall down, and it scared me.
So go to city council on Tuesday at I believe 6:30.
6:30.
I don't think it'll be an all-nighter. What's that?
It says 6 p.m. on the agenda.
Oh, is that the new thing now?
Yeah.
They started doing that before. Like, stop changing the time of the meeting. 6:30 is fine.
Yeah. But, I think 6:30 means a little smaller group of people get over there. So.
Right. You get out of work at 5 and you want to eat and you work a half an hour away, as we talked about earlier. Too bad for you.
Too bad for you. Also,
Yeah,
it's a little harder to get into the building. It takes a little longer to get into the building. So it just makes it. And then, of course, what happens at the very beginning of the meeting? Public comment. Now, so if you ask the city manager and you ask the city councilors why that decision was made, they would never admit that has anything to do with public comment. But every single policy this term that's come out of the majority, almost every, I shouldn't say every, but a vast group of policies and minutes and agendas and orders seems to be to limit the ability of the public to comment at city council. And so, of course, it's hard for me not to think that has something to do with the same exact movement led by at-large councilor Mo Bergman to limit speaking in city council by people, not developers. Goodness gracious, we got to get those developers in there ASAP. One thing that is on there, Tom, that I got to mention is the chickens.
Oh, right. Yes.
And I have to see now, everybody in the chat, right? All of you that are watching, all the city councilors, I see you. All the police officers, I see you. And I want you guys to all take this into account right now. Ready? Ready for this? Councilor Candy Merrill Carlson, she deserves credit because she pushed those items out of committee where they have languished for years, and they're being sent to the city manager. Now, I don't agree that we need a committee and a study and all these other things to get this done because, again, the city of Boston is able to handle chickens with 1 page, 1 paragraph ordinance, and 1 page explaining the details related to that ordinance. Literally, that's it. So if they can do it, so can we. We might as well just copy it. There's really nothing different between us and Boston but topography. It's all about topography, right? So it's, and obviously, and then population. There's a much bigger population in Boston. So they have more to deal with than we do, and we should be able to handle this. We should. And so I am very grateful to Council, and I did lobby Councilor Merrill Carlson heavily, and she has every right to be impatient with me right now because I did push on this issue, and I'm not the only one. There's multiple people doing it. Again, I don't want to take credit when it wasn't just me. Joseph Mangia McCarty is the citizen who started this particular set of petitions, but it has widespread support all across the city of Worcester, and so we should be able to get this done, and we should be able to get it done well. There's no reason why we can't do this. I'm pro chicken.
Just to clarify, John meant advocate because to lobby would be to do so on behalf of a client, which requires you to register. And you, of course, we're not doing so on behalf of the client.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything for any clients. I'm just all I'm doing is whispering sweet nothings into city councilors' ears on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean the language is a little weird in the order, but that's the feasibility of drafting. Like, is it feasible for us to draft an ordinance? Yes. Yes. It is feasible. But that's nitpicky. Yeah, that's nitpicky. But I mean, yeah, I don't know that we need a I don't like. I mean, I guess the biggest question is where is it going to be allowed? Because it's not going to be allowed everywhere, right? In the most probably in the most population, but the dense populous, the areas where the density of population is highest, close enough. It's probably not going to be allowed there.
And those are the people that want it the most.
Could be. But so, I mean, look, if you're in a building or you're in a place with no land, there's no way to do it. it is what it is.
Yeah. So usually it's based on the size of yard.
Yeah.
Just like growing plants is, right? So like I live on Crown Hill. I live on Irving Street, which is in the Crown Hill neighborhood. And in the Crown Hill neighborhood, it's a historic neighborhood, so there's a limit on gardening, right? And like you can only garden X based on how long your grass is, right? And so in the front of our building, there is enough grass that you can grow certain things, but you can't grow other. For example, you can't grow an apple tree. The reason you can't put an apple tree there is because if you put an apple tree there, the root structure is so significant that it will affect the street, because in Crown Hill, everything is like this. So you would then have roots that would spread out. And so all the trees are preserved. Everything's like very, very detailed there. The buildings are all got signs on them with years that they were built and all that other stuff. So you can grow like tomatoes, and you can grow cucumbers, and you can grow parsley and cinnamon, stuff like that. And so, but the people that enforce it have been very, very strict. So there's very few gardens left because people just don't want to go through the hassle of having someone come along and check to see if it's cumin or cinnamon. Right? That becomes it's so difficult that is a regulation for our city. And so I just think that this is something that needs to be reviewed. We over-regulate everything, and then we under-regulate the most important things of all. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like we over-regulate people's daily lives so much, but then when it comes to like when we ask for like significant oversight on a big thing, they're like, no, we don't need to see that. Nothing to see here.
That's too much work. That's not just telling somebody they can't do a thing and then giving them tickets if they do.
Right. By the way, I'm pro all the rebels in the city of Worcester growing their cumin. Go keep at it.
Yeah, I don't know that we need a board or something to decide. I mean, I guess there are some questions to answer. I don't know.
No, if someone grows a nuisance, if someone drops 15 elm trees in the middle of and the reason why this is an issue, again, if Elm Park, if you remember a couple of years ago, we had that bug that came there, and that's because people put trees that don't go there, because if you have too many different trees, they affect each other. They're different. They have different bugs that get attracted to them, and they have different, their roots are different. They take different amounts of water. So if you go look at the Elm Park right now, and I know I use Elm Park a lot, but it's right there, so it's easy. And you look at the spacing of the new trees. There's a reason why they're spaced, Tom. There's a reason they didn't just put them all in like a bush. They space them out because they need to care about how much water they're going to absorb, right? And how they're placed, and how much shade they're going to throw, and what's going to grow in there, and who's going to go, because not people, animals and bugs live in there. People.
And I just want to make one more point, which is really charter related. In a government that was actually functioned in a way that was worthy of this city, city council would have researchers and like people that would, instead of begging for information from the city manager and his endless list of reports that goes back years and is thousands and thousands of items long, because you can't possibly do them all. It would be impossible. That's all they do is write reports.
They don't have enough staff. Even that, they don't have.
City council could actually go get its own information and then make decisions and then write its own ordinance, but that would be work. And we'll just beg for the city manager to give us information, or give them information rather. And that's not really a slight on the city manager. Again, he couldn't do all that's all they do. If they did all the reports that city council asked for, that's all they do is those reports.
Right. So that's the other thing, is that here's where, people say that we're super critical of the city manager. And we are. However, I'm super critical of the city council, including the ones that I like. They don't write any ordinances. They don't even try. They don't do. I
don't know if they're even allowed to.
It seems that, but at least in committee, they could have tried to craft something. Like they could try to make a crafting of something and have that come onto the agenda, and then have that go to the city manager and then deal with it that way. But they don't even try that, and they haven't for years. In fact, basically the entire time Mayor Petty's been mayor, there really hasn't been any ordinances generated in committee like it used to be. And it used to be that way. If you guys remember, our old District 4 councilor, Barbara, she wrote ordinances when she woke up in the morning. That's all she did was write ordinances. There's a ton of ordinances that she wrote that are still on the books. And so, you got to look at that history. Like, why did that change? Kind of changed, I mean, it was, and I don't want to say it was Mayor Petty's fault because it's not his fault.
No.
It happened before he became mayor. I'm just saying that basically the whole time he's been mayor, we've had it operate that way where the city council does not write its own ordinances at all.
Well, there's been a massive abdication of power to the city manager. I mean, look, one of the primary problems in the city is, and this is very 50,000-foot view, but is that policy is supposed to be driven by the council in a city manager system. The city manager is supposed to be the operations person. He's supposed to execute, but they won't do it.
Right. It's completely backwards. And look at the budget. The budget is 100% generated by the city manager and the city manager's priorities.
So, right. I mean, naturally they're talking to him about their priorities and blah, blah, blah. But procedurally, it does have to come from the manager to the council. That's how it procedurally has to happen. He has to make a proposal. Now, in a real legislature, you could amend that. You can't in this dumb system.
Okay.
They can in Boston. They can't here. And then but again, they have a mayor. So then now you have a veto process, right?
Right.
They can make an amendment, send it to the mayor. Mayor can veto. It comes back. And they go through that process to get to a resolution.
Right.
Here, it's whatever comes from the city manager. They often just say yes because it's the majority does because it's politically expedient to do so. Why should we let this be a problem? And then if anybody does take an issue with it, well, now you're a chaos causer.
Right. But I will say this: maybe it's not supposed to exactly operate that way, but the tonality from at least Ed Augustus, Michael Bryan was a little bit different, but Ed Augustus and Eric Batista have always said whenever they make these speeches, my vision, my administration. That's the tones that they use. Look at the posts. You can see
it is his administration though.
Right. But so then it's his budget. Right. So then there's very much that approach, that thought process. It's a cultural thing that has been developed in the city, in City Hall. And this is the kind of thing that we're trying to pierce because it should be a collegial budget, right? But it's not. It's really come from one end. Even the things that different city councilors argue for are through the lens of the administration's process. Right. So, if it goes to for example, if it's a DPW, if George Russell wants to get money for a playground in District 3, right, he's got to put in a proposal that kind of goes through the process of the DPW and it goes through their shoot and it gets added to the budget and yada, yada, yada. And that's how we get things done.
I mean, the money can be allocated before but I get you. But yeah, I mean, there's very little. Can you think of crisis pregnancy centers? That was definitely driven by the council, by largely Council 2, and others supported it, of course, didn't pass. But that was the last time I can think of, and I can't think of another one where the policy really came from the council.
And so that one is a very striking thing. One, I think that was a massive waste of time because I don't think it was ever going to be found constitutional, which is what the city manager ended up punting on. If you remember, he said, I can't write this because it's going to be unconstitutional. And many people wanted to find out his personal views on that, and they were unable to pierce it because of that. But I agree that he was right, that it was probably never going to happen, that because there is an advocacy in Worcester. It has happened in other municipalities, but they don't have that same advocacy that they would sue to overturn it, which most likely would result in it being overturned.
Well, I think, if I remember correctly, what was it, Northampton and one other place, and neither one of them actually had one of those crisis pregnancy centers in their municipality, so there was no way to sue them.
Yeah, there's no harm, no harm, no foul. In this particular case, though, the one center that that exists on Chandler Street has a doctor that has referral privileges. And so that was the issue, is that the centers that didn't have a doctor with referral privileges shouldn't be allowed to be called a medical establishment, blah, 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 blah. And in the case of that particular facility, it predates the Planned Parenthood facility on Chandler Street by like 15 years. So it had been in the city for a long, long time, and it came up, to this particular issue, and it got very, very heated. The thing is that, Tom, I'm not minimizing the argument about abortion and about that situation. But I will say this: if that's the only ordinance, that doesn't have as much to do with the entire city of Worcester as we would want the councilors to do, right? I would think
Well,
that
I mean, that's fine as policy, but that shouldn't be the only one, right?
that's the
If
only
it wasn't
one.
the only one, we wouldn't. I don't think be looking. I don't think you'd look at it that way.
Right.
But that's the only time they did it.
But it also took a ton of council time up to deal with it, to talk about it, to go committees, to do all the stuff, and then it ended up being that the city manager, through this process that is set up, which why I also think this process is wrong, said we can't do it because it's not legal, in our opinion. It's not really it's not, by the way, there really is no final determination on that particular ordinance. It's just that the city manager said he doesn't think that it could fly.
I think they filed it.
They did. They voted to file, and then but the city solicitor at the time, which was not Alexandra, it was Mike. His opinion was that it was most likely not going to be the case, and I believe Councilor Nguyen got a outside lawyer to give an opinion of some kind at some point.
It was some organization, I forget, and they took the other side of it. The really objectionable thing that happened through all of that, I thought, was
well, and so that's a great. Actually, put that on the screen there. What Jack just said. I don't disagree with you, Jack. My thought process here about talking about ordinances and whether ordinances should be passed is that I don't know that the council is doing the reflection of the people. That's really what it comes down to. I think Councilor Nguyen, when they proposed that ordinance, was trying to represent Councilor Nguyen's constituency. I would say that that's true, but I don't know that the whole city gets the same treatment, especially from their at-large councilors, when it comes to ordinance creation. Because, as we were just saying, this is probably the only ordinance that we can think of in like 15 years
that originated from the council.
That came from the council, right? So, but and by the way, let's talk about the process. Councilor Nguyen did it right. Councilor Nguyen suggested it in council, asked for it to go to committee. It went to committee. There was a public interaction with that issue. There was public input there. It came back out of committee. There was several. It got held a couple times, and then the city manager, was kind of forced, but had to go say his opinion, which was based on the city solicitor's opinion, and then it was filed by the majority, right? So then it was filed, and that was the result.
Yeah, I mean the process.
At least it was a process. I like the process.
No, the real objectionable thing that happened there was the city solicitor at the time said, and I was stunned that he said it, and I remain stunned today, that the city manager is under no obligation to return to them an ordinance they request. Now,
true.
That's stunning.
It's stunning. Which means that if you remember back at the time, and we had some people really push back hard of us, because that's when we really were early in our live version of the show. We used to do a recorded version, and then we had a lot of trouble with the recorded version. Tom was doing way too much work to post it and cut it and all that other stuff. So we went to the live version of the show, and when we were talking about this, we talked about specifically that means basically the city council is completely cuckolded, because if they can't suggest an ordinance, and the city manager can just be like, I'm not gonna give it back to you, then that means that the city council really is ineffective in its representation of our votes. So I vote for the city council, my district councilor, and then the at-large councilors to create ordinances and operate the charter of the city of Worcester, and that they hire a manager who does their will, because their will is supposed to represent my will and your will and the people's will. But the city solicitor, maybe by accident, maybe on purpose, kind of opened the big secret of the city of Worcester, is that there really is no power in the city council. It's completely solidified in the city manager. And there's really nothing that can be done about that unless there's just massive public outcry and an overturning of the majority that exists today to a different majority that then votes to open the charter for review.
Yeah, it's a convoluted process. It's not quite that simple. But
It's not right there. I just want to say.
yeah, you're not exactly correct, but that's all right.
And of course, you can't. He can't give it to me, folks. He just can't give it to me.
Well, no, I mean, because it's really not their decision to open the charter. It's a whole convoluted thing. They can informally do. They could have any sort of body they wanted to create look at the charter and suggest changes and go through the process.
Can't they just do it themselves?
Huh?
Can't they just do that themselves?
They could do it themselves. They're not going to. I don't think they should. It should not, because I mean, now you have people that are supposed to be legislators right now. I mean, this happened in the 90s, 96-ish.
Yeah. They got rejected by the
council. Created a special committee, and it came back. First there was a non-binding ballot question: would you support a strong mayor? That passed, and then council created a special subcommittee, and then they came back with a weak mayor, which is council mayor has a lot more power over appointments, especially. Right? It's rather than the kind of the default being that there is no confirmation on most positions. They turned it into there is council has much more power on who serves in multiple positions, and then voters rejected that charter when it went to the ballot. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's if you had to boil it down to one thing, it is just. But at the same, I'm going to play. I'm going to be a hypocrite now. The problem is the council doesn't do stuff. It doesn't drive policy. It doesn't, anything that is in a traditional city manager system, right? City manager is supposed to be a doer. He's supposed to be managing the functional operations of city government. Policy is really supposed to come from the council. They set the policy, he enacts, and and then within those policies, he makes decisions about details. Like the city manager does, but they don't drive any policy, and I think that he's sort of in a position where, he's the only one that does drive policy, but maybe doesn't do as much as he thinks would be necessary because it's not really his role, but they won't do it. So somebody's got to do something.
Right. So then it just then we get a session like this city council session, which, we're coming to the end of, only just a few months left. And I would say, I don't know. I know that we're going to hear arguments in the next few weeks, right? From current city councilors and people running for office. I don't know that there's a signature thing in this 2-year stretch that this city council as a body can point to and say, we did that. I don't know that there is. Right? Other than, now I know that the majority is going to say, yeah, that's because the minority upended the council and created chaos. I know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
But
which is ridiculous.
Because, again, the mayor opened the door by allowing national debate. He opened the door to...
No. Time out. The city council has taken up those resolutions forever.
Right. I'm with you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is in this term, there was a door that was opened, and then the response to that door, when there was different ideas, and I'm not parsing the ideas. I'm just saying that you had the majority wanting to talk about X and Y, and then the minority wanted to talk about A and B, and the majority said, "Oh no, you don't get the same privilege." That's what happened, and then it led to this conflict. At the same time, the doom of the DOJ report, right? The DOJ report. I actually, Jack, I think it was the nuclear proliferation that started it. But anyways, that was the first one this session, and then we
wasn't this session. That was.
Technically, they were at the end of the last session, right? So
no, that was Sean Rose's petition or order, resolution, whatever the hell it was.
Right. So, but anyways,
That's
we definitely had the door opened, and it led to all this stuff, and we had these big arguments back and forth. But at the same time, the DOJ thing hit at the same time, like or within a few weeks of each other, and so this city council and city administration clearly showed, in my opinion, they couldn't handle two crises at once, not at all. They definitely didn't handle one crisis, let alone two, and then it mushroomed into more than that, right? It just kept kind of expanding, and so
the resident petition thing.
Another
that
thing.
I don't think that the city manager has any liability for that. That had nothing to do with him.
No, I'm not blaming the city
police
manager.
stuff, obviously.
I'm saying, I guess what I would say about the city manager's role is that at the same time, all the stuff that's taken place has been a really terrible job of communication from the city manager's office, like really, really poorly handled public relations. And so that has magnified the council's failure to get anything done at all. And then, of course, this particular summer, very, very importantly, was when there was the last protest that shut down a meeting, the double response of shutting the city hall down, right, coupled with going home, and then the media whining from the majority, but in particular the mayor going on Hank Stoll's show and saying, "Oh, we have so many items that are so important," and then they went on vacation 2 weeks later, and had a kiss bath for Eric before. So I'm sorry, that's what happened. So all of those things are rolled into one things. So I mean, but it's not the clerk's responsibility. That's the other thing. That it's not the clerk's job. It's the city council's job to deal with the agenda, and at least in a better version of the system. I think they really put Nico in a bad spot to make
hung him out to dry.
Of all of these petitions, because believe me, he's getting it, dude, from everywhere. He's getting hammered with questions and all concerns and all kinds of stuff. And I think at the last meeting, the city clerk and the city solicitor were like, "Hey, we're tired of this shit." I think Nico has been very publicly clear about what he's dealing with over there, because the city council has punted, and they've what is it? How do you do abject? Get out of your responsibility. What's the word? I'm not saying
no, not advocate though. They've hid behind him, really.
Yeah, they made it about Nico.
It's like that Bill Burr joke. When you run into you're watching TV, and what do you do when you run into a tiger in the jungle or whatever? You back up slowly, push your friend out, push your friend forward, back up slowly. That's basically what they did.
Right, and it's not Nico's fault. So, and now, I mean, maybe Nico could have handled it differently, I guess, with the way that. But just so you understand, I've seen some of the emails that were sent to Nico and his staff, and people are out of control. They're out of
people control. Are crazy. People are crazy.
People are nuts.
I don't understand why we have to hate everybody we disagree with on every. If we disagree on one thing,
it's crazy what they say. So.
Like. God damn it. Talk to somebody you disagree with and don't call them an asshole. Don't call them names.
Yeah. There's no reason.
How hard is it?
There's no reason. Except for on Worcester Political Dialogue, which I will call people names all day long.
I mean, that's a great example. There's a guy, and look, he's clearly to the right of me and to the right of many people on that message board, which is usually pretty good. I look at it frequently. And, he said, basically, there's a little whiny, but he says, guy said, "I'm out because I had a discussion with somebody and then I just got yelled at because I said the wrong thing." And of course he made the mistake of using woke yes, did he use woke in a dumb way? Yes, because it's just now a catch-all for the right for everything they don't like. It's like socialism and woke is the two words they just throw at anything they don't like. Doesn't matter what the definition of the word mean. And but all he said was basically, stop screaming at me. Like, we can agree to disagree. Stop screaming at me about it. And what did people do? Screamed at him.
I'm with it. I mean, at some point, yeah.
Just be nice to people. For Christ's sake. People that have a dumb political, that you think have a dumb political view, doesn't make them the Antichrist.
Right. I think there's some things that I'm willing to call people names on, like Charlie Kirk is a massive racist, and as far as I'm concerned, like that kind of speech is hate speech. So, in my opinion, the things that he's saying is crazy, insane, not American, and bordering on illegal. But I'm not gonna punch him in the
I don't know
face.
about that. I mean, he just plays the role of a super.
He's as far as so he not everybody's a Nazi, right?
Right.
Because that's what people do. They immediately go to Hitler and Nazi, and that's their
Yeah.
first approach.
Just stop mentioning the Nazis in any context.
Well, I think he is. I think in that case, Charlie Kirk is, because Charlie Kirk is okay with
No,
internment camps.
he's
No,
a
no. I mean, he's been open. He thinks that everybody who's Hispanic, that he's okay with this concept that if we're not like this legacy European person, that we shouldn't be here. So he really is related to this Aryan kind of thought process.
I
So
don't
like
really think
him,
that far,
but not everybody is like. I mean, he said those things very, very publicly, that he thinks white is right and all this other stuff. He's a super white supremacist guy, and so that to me is the guy you use that name for. You don't use it for like Joe Petty. That's silly. That's silly. It's
yeah.
just that it's just not the same thing. They're just not the same. Just because you disagree
I
with
mean,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like because I disagree with the mayor on a bunch of stuff, that I suddenly he's a bad guy. No,
No, I mean, so like even on this is argument on Reddit right now about who we should vote for mayor, Christian King or Joe Petty. They're the kind of leading candidates, right? We don't know everybody who's going to run, but right now most people think that's going to be the two people. And then the argument, a lot of people start saying Joe's this, Joe's that, and what I've said in my post is that I think Joe's still a good guy that loves the city of Worcester, but I also think we need change. He's been mayor for 14 years. He's been on city council for 28. Sometimes it's time to change, man. And so you need to have a new group of people to see what happens, because the same issues that existed in Worcester 50 years ago still exist today for the most part. We got some nice shiny new buildings for sure. We got a ballpark for sure. But man, there's still some things where people who are kind of in the people that are minority and people that are poor definitely don't have the same seats at the table as others. That's just the way it is.
that was yes, Jack. That was in part what he said. He he's in the middle of a conversation, and somebody he thought it was snotty or whatever, that somebody like dumped the definition of a word, and I mean, yeah, was it did I think that what the guy wrote was the most well written thing in human history? I did not, but I mean, the pile-on that ensued kind of proved his point, regardless of how well he said it.
Oh, that post. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I agree with Tom. I think that guy got hammered. I also think
For
that,
nothing.
yeah, he got hammered, but that's because the word woke triggers people. So you hear the word woke and people just go off the deep end. By the way, that's part of the reason we got to the position that we're in, is by using that word so much, by using those things so much, and by hammering people like that guy. I think that you created a base of voters that didn't exist before, and they all voted for this dude that's running the ship. And,
Yeah.
it is what it is, dude.
Because they'd rather burn it down than continue doing what we're doing, which is making them feel like an asshole because they have thoughts.
And now this particular week, I got to listen to people praise Gavin Newsom, which is wild, because he does a bunch of the same stuff, but because he's making funny tweets on Twitter.
Well, hold on.
And they're hilarious. Hilarious. Laugh out loud, spit out my water. Hilarious. Good for him. But he's still going to people who are homeless and having police smash them in the face. It's the same exact stuff. The same, uniparty. This is how we're going to approach these kind of issues. He's still doing the same stuff.
I mean, he is,
he's not a
corporate Democrat to his core, for sure. And, I mean, like, I hope he runs because, I think he can win because he's quick on his feet, verbally and all that. And, when he's in a spot where he's answering questions, I mean, he knows policy for sure, but that's because I hope he runs because I think he can win, and it's better than, whoever follows this goddamn nightmare we're in. And,
yeah, I mean, but it also
and anybody that I would actually like, I don't think is going to get elected. So
it just indicates we can only have white men run for president. That's really where we're at in our country, and he's probably legitimately the only person who could beat the guy. I don't know of anybody else. I don't know that they would give full things. But then I don't know. This guy in New York, he's making them all uncomfortable over there, and I like it. I like it. I don't agree with everything he says, but man, this guy is making everybody uncomfortable. It's great.
I mean,
If
he goes out and it's on video, and he makes nice videos, but no, the content of the video is amazing.
The policy, dude, the video that he made with the conservatives, the conservative business owners, that's the best thing I've seen a politician do in 1,000 years. He let them talk and he engages with them, and he doesn't call them "you're an idiot" and "you're a racist." He doesn't do that. He engages with their concerns, and it's amazing stuff by that guy. And by the way, the liberal media, the kind of mainstream Democratic media, has completely pigeonholed him, and he is not at all what they're saying he is. They're not at all. By the way, to have what's his name, the ex-governor there, Cuomo, to have Cuomo have the audacity to complain about him living in rent-controlled housing, the audacity of Cuomo to say that, and then to have Hakeem Jeffries, by the way, steaming pile of donkey.
Oh, human garbage. Just trash.
The worst. But I'm happy, and I am not a Mandami guy. His policies probably not for me. But you know what? Love that he's making everybody uncomfortable. Great.
I mean, I don't know what he said that's so objectionable. He wants to slow the growth of housing prices through government control. People don't like that, fine. But and I mean, he wants to pilot some programs to see if they work. Oh, how terrible.
The whole issue is one of his supporters, put up that post about the Antifada, and he liked it on Instagram. And they're holding that against him because the AIPAC people got to come out of nowhere and just start hammering him because somehow that's bad. Somehow this is
because where we're at in America is if you aren't for dead Palestinians, you're anti-Semitic.
Which is wild because Trump, listen, this is the crazy part about our country. It's wild right now. But Trump said to Netanyahu's face, those kids look pretty hungry. He said it. It's on you can't deny the video. It is what it is.
Doesn't care.
He doesn't care enough to push, but he was making some kind of comment, and then all of a sudden you see the Fox News people, they start to pivot just a little bit and they start to push back against it and this kind of stuff. But then they killed the guy. They killed the guy who was doing the videos. They got him. That's their response wasn't to go, oh, hey, Trump actually has a point. We are starving kids. No, they went and got the guy who was giving the videos of them shooting kids. What the hell? Man, that's what's happening in our world right now. And people are like, yeah, that's what you're celebrating? Wild world we live in. And I don't care about anybody doing the cancel culture nonsense where they're if you say that, then you're for this, John. Well, you know what? I'm for people, man. I believe in people. And that's the only way we could do things. So,
yeah,
I don't want to break our street, Tom.
Yeah, no. Just last thing. Gino says calling out an a-hole is okay. It is, but I mean, if you do nothing but scream at people and you never talk to people, I don't know why they would ever decide. Where does between yelling and them agreeing with you? I don't see the path. So maybe let's just stop yelling at everybody.
I hear you. I hear some people have lost the right, in my opinion, for me to listen to them anymore.
Well, that's fine. But don't just stand there and scream at them.
I'm not going to scream at them. I'm just going to talk. And I'm going to say my point over and over again, I guess is what it is. That's annoying, too. It's nuh-uh.
It is time now for John's favorite part of the show.
Don't you do... Oh, I knew it. Listen, so you guys all saw that right there. You saw disinformation and misinformation live. That's how it looks. It looks like that. Not tweets from an orange-haired maniac. Not tweets from a dude who's arresting homeless people left and right. No, Tom Marino, each and every week, he lies to this screen and says that this portion of the show is my favorite portion of the show. And that's not true. The numbers are in, Tom. The polling is in. And the best part of the show, the number one part of the show, is Tom's favorite things.
Listen, you had a socialist pollster who's connected to the Democrats. I have the best pollsters. They're the best. Everybody says they're the best. And my pollsters say that you're lying. Go.
Socialist pollster from Cornell, probably from Cornell. It's got to be Cornell.
Harvard.
Harvard.
They hate Jews.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Okay.
Oh man,
Like I can't do it. Okay.
Tom, we are in the busiest and the worst traffic part of the year for the city of Worcester, which is next week. All the RAs start coming back because what's happening the week after? All the college kids are coming back.
Good. They'll spend money.
And so traffic gets really bad around the colleges basically for 2 weeks straight. We all know it. We love it because they're going to bring their economic boom. Oh, wait, has Clark not brought an economic boom? I guess they haven't. But anyways, in the meantime, I thought, Tom, the best thing for me to ask you this, I'm putting you on the spot. This is going to be hard for you. This is a tough one. We have a lot of colleges in this city. Who's your favorite university in the city of Worcester?
I mean, I went to Worcester State. I'm not going to say Worcester State. I mean, it's not the best, but it's mine.
What's this thing?
There are people. I mean, I haven't been up there in too long, but there's people at least at the time were up there. I'm sure some of them are gone, some of them are there. There were amazing people. So
now,
Michael Gesson in the history department, Najib Saliba, who I think is semi-retired in his history department.
All right, so Worcester State is Tom's call. So most of you are probably going to assume that because I graduated from Clark that I'm gonna say Clark. And I know President Fithian is probably watching right now. He's going to be sorely disappointed. Although I doubt very much that David Fithian ever watches our show. But you guys can all send him our show, and he can see how excitingly successful one of his Clark graduates have become. Anyway, I've decided that my favorite school in the city of Worcester is Quinsigamond Community College. And the reason why, I just like the way they're doing stuff over there. I really do. I enjoy it. I like the way the Alumni Association is engaging people. I love that they're getting all the high schools involved. And I'm excited to say I love Quinsigamond. And I'm not anti any of the other schools. I'm not even anti-Clark. I'm just critical of Clark because I went there. But I would say that I like what Quinsigamond is doing. And, people should check it out. There's great adult programs there. You go to school at night, a lot of free classes. Go check out Quinsigamond Community College.
You know what they are? What touches my heart is they do a bunch of cool stuff, right? They always have some sort of program going on, but they're also good at promoting what they do in a way that's not that corny, right? It's not like just self promotion, right? They're killing it for a community college. They're killing it.
They're killing it. Good job, QCC. You guys can, in the comments there, give the old QCC a tag, and so they can know that we get. And Worcester State, give them a shout out. You can tag Clark too, and see if David Fithian will check out the podcast.
All right, kids. Every Sunday at 8:30, we are here. We do this live. If interested, you can also get the Now on Apple podcast, as well as Spotify and a bunch of others. You can find this here program.
Follow, share, tell your friends. Like, follow, share, tell your friends. Like, follow, share. Oh, and tickets for Dead of Winter 2026 are live. You can get your tickets now. Get them as soon as possible because I have announcements. So get them as soon as you can. I got stuff coming.
That is the party message. Get your tickets now. Thank you, everybody. Every week at 8:30, please come join in the chat. Until then, we will try to screw it up less next week.
That's right. 6 weeks straight, less than 2 hours, baby. Woo!